The infidels, they're so stupid it burns. For lots of them, it's about what they earned. But we're in big trouble unless some of them learns, and learns quick, before the jihadis take turns at burning our cities, and those cities never returns. Now you're probably wondering why all the bad rhymes. Even you can make rhymes better than that. And I wanted to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that this week's poem for this week in Jihad has bad rhymes in honor of the Quran. In particular, chapter 37, verses 125 to 130, which go like this. Will you cry to Baal and forsake the best of creators, Allah, your Lord and the Lord of your forefathers? But they denied him, so they surely will be called forth except single-minded slaves of Allah. And we left for him among the later people, peace be upon Eliases. Now, it's not just peace be upon Elias, it's peace be upon Eliases, because that whole passage is going back and forth between lines that end with un and lines that end with een, and that line calls for an ending of een, which means you can't have it end with Elias. You got to make him plural, Ilyasin. And so suddenly we have more than one Elias. That is Elijah in the Greek. And so verse 37, 109 says, peace be upon Abraham. 120 says, peace be upon Moses and Aaron. And then 130, peace be upon Eliases. So it's a bad rhyme in honor of the bad rhyming Quran. And it is, that's right, this week in Jihad. David is with us. David Wood, the great David Wood, is with us. David, what do you have to say to the multitudes?
You guys had your chance, man. You had your chance. We told them a month and a half ahead of time we were coming to Times Square. We're coming to Washington Square Park. We show up. They didn't send their top brass, Robert. They didn't send it. Well, they might have, because I don't have any reason to think that anyone else would have done better. But they got crushed, Robert. They got crushed in Times Square.
What a surprise! Who would have
Pretty.
thought?
It was pretty terrible, and some legendary moments. Oh, on the plus side, Robert, most of the time it was God logic and inspiring philosophy. It was standing in the middle of the crowd, basically accepting all challenges. It wasn't just Muslims; it was basically anyone walking down the street could step up and raise some objections. But we did get some Muslims, and I jumped in for some of that. But other than that, while they're on camera, I'm kind of off to the side and people are coming up and talking to me. But lots and lots and lots of ex-Muslims coming up to me.
Hey, great.
Lots of ex-Muslims, man.
Well, that's exciting. Things are happening. There's no doubt about it. And, well, one of the other reasons why I wrote the bad poem today is in honor of the stupid infidels. And when you got stupid people, you write a stupid poem in their honor. And so it's Stupid Infidels Week here at This Week in Jihad. It's always Stupid Infidels Week, but this week they're stupider than usual, David. It's the levels of stupid. They're just, I don't know. They turned it up to 11.
I don't know. I've seen some serious levels of stupid pretty much every week. So I don't see how this could be something extraordinary.
All right, where should we start? Where to start? How about Spain? Shall we start in Spain? In Spain?
Yes, but if we're going to talk about Spain, Robert, we can't forget the golden age of Islam. Let's just be clear on that. The Andalusian paradise that was Islamic rule. And then it was ruined. It was ruined by everyone else. But just keep that in mind as we look at these problems.
Yes, because this was what was no doubt in the mind of the man who started this fire. You see the smoke billowing out of this building. That is the Church of Santiago Apóstol in El Pozuelo, Albuñol, in Spain. And I just wanted to say that. But in any case, young man, barely 20 years old, we're told, in the Spanish paper. He said he went in and burned the church of El Pozuelo in Albuñol, last Sunday, about noon. He went inside the church, locked himself inside, started destroying furniture, and set fire to the interior. Now, my source for this story is a Spanish paper called Granada Digital, and it gives us no information about who this man is. However, it was going around Remix News, which is an excellent source for European jihad news. They had a story about it that said that he was a Moroccan and thus a Muslim migrant. And he broke into the church, locked himself in, started destroying furniture, and then set the place on fire. And the Union of Islamic Communities of Andalusia condemned the attack and said this is an isolated act that in no way represents the Andalusian Muslim community. All right, so that's all very good. We're glad that they're on record denouncing that. But meanwhile, the mayor, the alcalde of is it Albuñol, or was that anyway? Yeah, Albuñol, Maria Jose Sanchez. Would that be Sanchez in Spanish? But in any case, she says, we've got to be careful, David, against any attempt to use this unfortunate event to create division or confrontation among residents. Albuñol is a diverse, supportive, and welcoming municipality where coexistence and respect are fundamental pillars that must not be compromised. An entire community cannot be criminalized for the actions of one person.
Well, I would agree. You don't criminalize an entire community for the actions of
Right.
one person.
I
But
couldn't agree more. But what
we see
is
the
really being said here?
yeah, we see the actions over and over and over again, and we trace them back to the source and the cause of these things. That basically Islam is supposed to subjugate the world until all religion is for Allah. Muhammad said that he'd been shown the east of the east and the west of the west, and Islam ruled over all that he saw. So Muslims understand they are supposed to take over the world, crush everything that gets in their path. And then you got some Muslims actually obey it, some don't. And whenever the Muslims who actually follow what Muhammad taught and try to subjugate the world, we're told, don't blame all others for that. Well, we don't. We blame the ideology that causes them to do this. And it's great when Muslims don't follow what Muhammad said, but what's that got to do with us condemning the ideology?
Mm-hmm.
But it's just interesting because, I mean, Europeans, they know this happens. They know about the constant, endless stabbings and the church attacks and so on. They know about the grooming gangs, and it's not just in the UK. It's been in tons of countries with Muslims of different backgrounds. They know all this, and they've decided that not being Islamophobic is more important. So, hey, as long as we're not Islamophobic, we're willing to take limitless attacks and limitless destruction of lives and buildings and so on. And I have to say, Robert, if that's what they decide, then that's what they decide.
Mm-hmm. And so that's really the problem here, that she's setting up a straw man. Nobody, or at least not you or me or any of the other people that usually talk about these issues, we're not criminalizing an entire community or saying all the Muslims in the world or even all the Muslims in Spain or all the Muslims in Albuñol are responsible for this. Only the guy who did it is responsible. But the fact is that he did it based on Islamic teachings. And those Islamic teachings need to be known. And instead, they get obscured by people saying, oh, well, we can't criminalize a whole community because this happened, which wasn't really what was going on at all.
Yeah. So, yeah, total straw man. And we get this every single time, Robert. If after every, and you remember, this has been going on for decades now. After every terrorist attack, we said, here's why there's a terrorist attack. Look at these teachings. Look at this. When we see an honor killing, we say, here are the teachings in Islam that justify this. After a woman is attacked or a girl is attacked, we go to the Islamic teachings that justify these kinds of things. And every single time we hear, how dare you condemn an entire community, 2 billion Muslims, for the actions of one person, which we've never at any point done. Total, complete straw man. And when the only thing people have to say in response to anything is a straw man, probably got a little problem with their ideas.
Probably. All right, I got more. There's more, David. You might be surprised to hear. In Germany. Now, we have heard many, many times. How long have you been doing this show? You started out on your old channel, moved over here. It's what, 4 or 5 years, maybe?
4 or 5 years. 4 or 5 years is what I was thinking.
So, how many times? Hundreds of times, probably, or at least dozens. We've had stories where there's a jihad attack, very clear jihad attack, guy screaming Allahu Akbar, and he gets put in a mental hospital. Because the authorities in France, in Germany, elsewhere in Europe, they are committed to ignoring and denying the reality of jihad. So they have to classify jihadis as something, and they put them in mental hospitals. Right?
Oh, and yeah, and we, as you pointed out, we pointed this out numerous times. When people, especially the leaders and the journalists, have been bombarded and have bombarded others, but when people have been bombarded their entire lives with this Islam as a religion of peace, and only an Islamophobe, someone with a mental problem, would see it as violent, they apply the exact same reasoning to someone who goes and kills people or does something else violent in the name of Allah. It's so obviously peaceful. Really? Have you read it? No, but we've heard all our lives that it's so peaceful that only an insane person, only a person with a mental disorder could view it as violent. And then someone goes, oh, Allahu Akbar, I'll stab you in the neck. And they say, obviously got to be insane, because there's no way you could get that from the Muslim sources that command you to do it.
Yep. So this is a clinic in Germany, a psychiatric hospital. What is it in German? Krankenhaus? Great word. Anyway.
Yeah, it sounds German.
Yeah. And so very peaceful. You can see it's a bucolic, peaceful setting. They send people there who have mental difficulties, and they try to get them better. And so there's this 13-year-old girl, David, and she was identified in her area in Germany as being radicalized online, as they say. That is, of course, it couldn't have happened at her mosque. It couldn't have happened at home, because we all know that every Muslim is really peaceful. And so it must have been that she went online and she saw Muslims who were twisting and hijacking the peaceful religion, and she fell for it.
Or they saw This Week in Jihad.
or something on your channel.
Hey, yeah, Dave, don't you remember years ago there was that guy, and he actually went to court on terrorism charges, and he started saying, Robert Spencer and David Wood, these guys are right about Islam, and yeah. I realized that. And then people, you see, it's like, wait, I don't remember who that was either, yeah. But
anyway,
why? Because we're right. We're on the same page with the jihadis as to what Islam teaches.
Indeed. And so, anyway, so this 13-year-old girl, she's at risk for jihad activity, and they can't admit that there is jihad activity, so they send her to this clinic in Paderborn, this Krankenhaus, and or whatever the word is, and she's there getting psychiatric treatment to cure her of her jihad sentiments. And what does she do? What do you think she does, David?
I'm guessing she stabbed someone in the neck or something.
You are correct, sir. It was a nurse.
Shocker. Robert, you You didn't even start the story. You didn't even start the story. And I said, oh, and when someone stabs someone in the neck, they say, oh, it must be an insane person. Then that was actually the story. Robert, I just want to point out this is how scientific confirmation works, right? You come up with a hypothesis and then you see if it's confirmed or not. And it's helpful if you are able to make predictions about what will happen, right? That's the sign of a good hypothesis. Here's my hypothesis. Well, if this is correct, then here's what's going to happen. Here are the observations we would expect to see. And you can sit here and start not even say what the story is, and I can make my prediction based on what Islam teaches, and it's confirmed every time.
I think that's how we're going to have to do this now. See if you can figure out what might happen. Here's another one. All right. Here's the guy. Let me get the guy on screen. I know I got him here. There he is. That is Yusuf Musa. And he is a resident of Britain. You can tell he's British. And he's actually from Ethiopia. But you can tell, as his name is Musa, he is Muslim. And he was invited to go to a social event for asylum seekers that was held in a church. What do you think he did there, David?
So many things to choose from because they can do all kinds of things. You know, you can attack people, you can blow things up, you can shoot people, but
okay, he didn't do any of that. No violence.
If the go-to has to be stabbing someone in the neck.
That's right, but this one's no violence. So what did Yusuf do?
That's good.
Take all the violence off the table. Yusuf's a non-violent guy.
I guess screams Allahu Akbar and tears down.
No, it's a social event. It's a church event, and there are a bunch of volunteers there who help out with asylum seekers. Many of them, David, are women.
Oh, that's not good. Guessing he did something to a woman, Robert.
Yep, he groped one of the volunteers, and they were so concerned about this that they called the police. One of the police officers...
How dare
they? One of the police officers who showed up was a woman. And so he asked her for a kiss. He gets arrested. He gets released on bail, and he goes out the next morning and runs into a family at a shopping center and starts asking the mother and the daughter for hugs. So this is just a guy who he just wanted some love, David. It's just that England is so cold, you know? It's a cold place. Stiff upper lip and all that.
Well, don't worry too much, Robert. Give him another 2 years. He'll be mayor of one of those places.
Yes. He's in, what is this now? Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. I hit something wrong. Oh, there we go. Okay. I don't know if that showed anything on the screen, but whatever. Okay. So, he gropes the church volunteer. He tries to sexually assaults the church volunteer while smiling and think it funny. And then tries to kiss the cop. Keeps bothering the mother and daughter for hugs the next day until the husband had to step in and pull him away. You got to wonder why he waited. But in any case, he clearly is one of
That's what you're wondering? That's what you're wondering? I'm wondering why they let a racist, Islamophobic, hate-mongering bigot into that thing.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
I mean, hasn't the pattern been to show how loving and tolerant we are? We let you do whatever you want to our wives and daughters. Thought that was the pattern over there.
One would think. After all, I got another story out of the UK, and this all across Britain. It's just come out this week, but all across Britain last Valentine's Day, children as young as 5 were required in school to send Valentine's cards to asylum seekers, writing, "You're welcome here. I love you. You're just like me and you. Roses are red, violets are blue. Refugees are people just like me and you."
Well,
Now,
think about these confusing mixed messages, right?
mhm.
You're sending you've got all these teenage girls sending love letters to all the asylum seekers, and then the asylum seeker gets here, he goes around hugging and kissing people and grabbing on them, and then they're like, "Oh, you can't do that." Like, what do you mean? You've These people have literally been sending me love letters.
That's right. That's it. How could they object?
Can you imagine that, Robert? Some woman keeps sending you love letters over and over again. You go, "Oh, okay, let me try and give her a kiss." And then she's like, "No, get away from me, evil person." Like, what?
Yep.
Make up your mind, lady.
Yep. That's Britain for you. Okay, I got more. I tell you, the stupid this week. I can't believe how stupid the infidels have been this week. Okay, Canada, the Liberal government of Canada. It just came out this week that they have spent $170,000 to bring back Islamic State ISIS brides from Syria. But it's not just that they spent $170,000 to bring them back. They flew them business class. They put them up in 5-star hotels. They let them order room service. And these women, one woman ran up a $1,100 bill buying $95 worth of wine, which is interesting. $105 room service meal. That's a big meal, unless it's a really expensive hotel where, I don't know, a hamburger is $40 or something. And $87 worth of items from the hotel gift shop, including chocolates, chips, and Benadryl and Reactine, among other drugs. And it's all on the taxpayer nickel.
And you can see how this all ties together. Robert, have you seen these videos when they go and interview these ISIS brides at these camps and so on?
Yeah.
They're still calling for the death of infidels, and we're going to raise up our kids and so on. Canada's like, "Hey, let's get them back here," but it's still embedded in the thinking of Western leaders, especially on the left, that the only reason these women want us dead and want to subjugate the world is because we've been so mean to them. We've oppressed them. That's why. It's got nothing to do with their religion commanding them to subjugate the entire world and calling them superior. It's got nothing to do with that. Their feelings have been hurt so bad by things that Western imperialism has done that all you have to do is show them how nice you are and how much you love them and shower them with money and everything else. Their hearts will melt and they'll renounce their ISIS ways. And that's been the theory for decades. Just never seems to work out that way. Weird.
It's a beautiful
We're
theory,
we're talking about scientific confirmation. Well, there's also scientific disconfirmation, Robert. If you say, "Here's my theory, here are the predictions that I would make based on this theory." Well, if your predictions are shown to be stupid and fall every single time, seems like there should come a point where you realize you got a stupid idea in your head, but never happens.
Never happens. And it just keeps going. All right. In France, there was supposed to be a screening of Barbie, the movie that came out, I don't know, last year, a couple years ago. I didn't see it. But they were going to show it in this area of Paris where there's a large concentration of Muslim migrants who then issued threats saying they did not agree with the depiction of women in this movie. And as a result, the screening was canceled. Because we all know that to give the people who issue threats what they want, nothing bad can come from that, right?
Well, I'll just have to say, Robert, you can't blame people. There's no way they could have known this would happen. No one bothered to warn them. No one told them that as you bring in more and more Islam, it's going to demand more and more control over all of society. No one told. Oh, wait, we did tell them that over and over and over again. And in response, they called us racist and bigots and said, we're Islamophobes. We have a mental disorder. And yet we were proven exactly. Robert, go back 20 years to what we were saying Islam was going to do in Europe.
Yep.
Is there anything, is there one word that we've been wrong about?
Not a thing.
Now think about everything our critics said about us and what we said. Is there anything they were right about?
No, they lied all the way from beginning to end, claiming that Islam was not all about what everybody knows it's all about now, and what we were saying.
And here we
it was
are,
all
20
about.
years late, 20 years of every possible way our claims could be confirmed. They've been confirmed. Every possible conceivable way our critics' claims could be disconfirmed. They've been disconfirmed, and they're still saying the exact same things. That should be the definition of mental illness, Robert.
Yeah. Oh man, it is Mental Illness Week. I got another one. The Toronto International Film Festival was going to show a movie called The Road Between Us, The Ultimate Rescue, which was about the October 7th Hamas massacre of 1,200 Israelis. But it uses footage from Hamas's cameras. What do you call those cameras, David? The ones you wear, GoPro?
GoPros?
Yeah, and the Hamas jihadis were wearing those cameras and filming what they were doing, because jihadis like to see other jihadis get killed, killing infidels, and it's a recruitment video as well for other Muslims who might be considering becoming jihadis, because they know that's what Islam teaches, and they see these guys are doing it, and then they want to join up. So there's a lot of footage from Hamas itself of October 7th. A lot of it is used in this movie. And so the Toronto International Film Festival actually decided to cut the screening of this movie because they did not have permission from Hamas to use the footage.
Smart. If terrorists record something, then you certainly want to respect their copyright.
Oh,
if
yeah.
terrorists record something and send it around the world for all to see, you certainly want to respect copyright law.
Mm-hmm. It's incredible. It's incredible. All right. This was an interesting one. I don't know if you saw this video. Did you see Reem M. Dahiri?
I did not.
Okay, let me find her here. I really ought to learn how to play videos, but it just seems like they take. Anyway, it's. I'm gonna have to ask you about that off screen, yeah, off screen one day. Where is she? Let me see. Hang on. Oh. Anyway,
You see?
it's around here somewhere. There it is. This lady.
Oh, this
Yeah, you
chick.
did
Yeah, I
see
saw
her.
her.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Her-
yeah.
Her name is Reem M. Adahiri. Anyway, she gets arrested. She actually assaulted this other guy she was accusing of Islamophobia. And then when the police come, she accuses them of Islamophobia. Says, you ought to be bowing down to me. I'm a Muslim. You're gonna pay. You're doing Islamophobia. You see here on the screen. You know I'm a Muslim. Islamophobia. You did it. You did your Islamophobia. Have you done your Islamophobia today, David?
Oh, I do my Islamophobia all the time, Robert. Day in, day out.
Yes.
It's crazy. It's like what she's saying is entirely correct from an Islamic perspective. We have to
Yes.
keep our mouths shut and do it. And how dare we question anything they do or say, and they are superior to us in every way, and that's the way it's supposed to be. You're just a couple years you're a couple years ahead, lady. This is
Yep.
you haven't gotten there yet. Haven't gotten there yet, despite the signals you're getting from every government and every journalist and so on that says, no, we're already there. You can do what you want. I mean, if you're looking there, hey, look at the UK. These Pakistanis can go around just banging every 12-year-old, and the government will do everything they can to keep it going. You think, we are in control already, but yep, that cop didn't get the memo.
Yep. All right, we got another one you probably saw. This is Mohamed Mohamed.
Mohamed.
There he
Now,
is.
Robert, we've seen in the past when we look at the list of grooming gangs. I even asked AI. What's the most common name of the men who've been convicted in the grooming gangs? It said Mohammed. So we've pointed this out, and I've asked, hey, what could all these Mohammeds possibly have in common that's causing them to do this? But I have to say, this guy's doubling up on the Mohammed. So if you just told me someone's name is Mohammed, tell me about what he's in the news for, I could tell you something. I could make some predictions.
Oh, yeah. So Mohamed, of course, he's identified in the news reports as a Tennessee man. You can see he looks like a guy out of Nashville, maybe, or Chattanooga, maybe. Anyway, Mohamed, he was actually in Nashville on the front steps of a Nashville church, where he came upon a semi-conscious woman and raped her while she was going in and out of consciousness, trying to swat him away to no avail. But he repeatedly sexually assaulted her, and then she died on the way to the hospital once the police saw this going on and actually stopped him. Now, surely this should not be discussed in this program, because they're rapists of all creeds, and so this has nothing to do with Islam or Jihad, does it?
Let's just say people named Mohammed are disproportionately represented in the rapist community.
Now, why might that be?
If I don't know, I mean, I'm no scholar. I'm not from Oxford or anything, but it might have something to do. If I had to guess, it might be the repeated claims in the Quran that Muslims can take non-Muslim women as their sex captives and so on, and that Allah certainly doesn't care, because Muslims are the best of peoples ever raised up for mankind. That's Surah 3, verse 110. And non-Muslims are the worst of creatures, Surah 98, verse 6. So Allah has no concern over these people who are not even people. They're lower than insects, according to Islam.
And so you can tell this guy is clearly one of the best of people.
He is.
Okay. Very good, then. So another big story, David, comes out of Israel and Gaza with our old friend Ahed Tamimi, who has been in the news now and again. That's not her. Sorry. That's not her at all. Where is she? Hang on. I know she's around here somewhere. Pardon me.
Come out, wherever you are.
Yeah.
Allah Oxenfree.
There she is. Ahed Tamimi. You may remember her from years back when she was very young, early teens. She started showing up in Palestinian protests against Israel. Had a big head of curly hair. Now she's a bit older, obviously, and still not that old. And she said very, very interesting and revealing things in a recent interview. She said, I was raised to believe that Judaism means occupation. And today, tomorrow, and a million years from now, I will continue to say that Judaism should be presented to the children of Palestine, children of my age and younger, as occupation, and that we are fighting the Jews, not Zionism. Now, what's striking about that is so many times people have said that they are against the Zionists but not the Jews. And now here's a head to Mimi saying, well, actually, we are fighting the Jews and not the Zionists.
And it's just strange, Robert, because I mean, haven't we been told over and over again? And in fact, weren't we told during this very episode that you don't blame an entire community for the actions of certain individuals? And yet, I mean, have all Jews done anything to this woman? Of course not. And yet, all Jews are blamed. Isn't that strange?
Yeah, isn't that strange? So she also says, let the whole world be destroyed. I don't care. Let them drop nuclear bombs and destroy the whole world so it won't be just the Palestinians. I've reached the point where I wish for a World War III. Whoever dies, dies, and whoever lives, lives. The important thing is that we will be over with this. I've reached this point. The Westerners patronize us by saying, we give aid to the Palestinians. You will give aid to the Palestinians, whether you like it or not. I'm paying the price for your mistakes and the mistakes of your country and your political and economic systems on my own land. You should give aid to the Palestinians, and they will not thank you. Because they're entitled to it, am I right?
Yeah, I mean that's how the world is supposed to be. They're supposed to be sitting around, and we're supposed to be handing them everything, and then we go ahead and do it. It's just crazy. But it's interesting because with Hamas, I've remarked many times, you go to the Hamas charter, and Article 7 is the article that calls for the complete extermination of all Jews. And you go to the very next article, and that's the one that says their highest goal is death for the sake of Allah. And so think about this. They want all their enemies wiped out, and their greatest goal for themselves is to be wiped out. That's like the supreme example of a death cult. You want death for everyone, both for yourselves and for your enemies. And then she's sitting here, hey, I'd love to see World War III and just nuclear bombs blowing us all up and stuff. Shocker.
Shocker. All right, let's go to Qatar. And I have him here. You wouldn't know it to look at this guy, Remy Rouhani, but he's actually a Baha'i. And he's the head of the Chamber of Commerce in Qatar. Or at least he was. And he was just put in prison because he's 71 years old, and he was just put in prison because he wrote some posts on social media that talked about equality of men and women. And because he wrote about equality of men and women, he was imprisoned for casting doubt on the foundations of the Islamic religion. Casting doubt on the foundations of the Islamic religion.
Mm-hmm. Well, that would. I mean, Mohamed said that the testimony of a woman is worth half the testimony of men. Why? Because of the deficiency of their mind. He said that women are morally inferior to men. That's why most of the inhabitants of hell are women. And then you've got the Quran. Men are in charge of women. Men are in charge of women. Surah 4, verse 34. That's why you get to beat them into submission and so on. So, if he's smart, in his defense, he could say, no, guys, it's a lie that I was telling to Westerners so that they would accept Islam. I'm not saying that I'm not saying it seriously. I'm doing taqiyya. I'm deceiving them about what we're really all about. He should have said that. Then they'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, give this guy a medal.
But he's a Baha'i is the problem.
That's the point. He could still say it. He could still say, yeah, I'm Baha'i, but that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to help you guys spread Islam.
Oh, clever.
I'm trying to help the guy with his defense, man. Walk in there, say, "Oh, here's a list of Muslims who say this in the West in order to dupe women into converting to Islam. How are you going to blame me for something that thousands and thousands of Muslims have been doing for decades?"
It's a true fact. All right, let's go to Massachusetts. Up in Boston, this is Yermiah Yusuf Sawaked of Everett, Massachusetts. And he went to Boston, went to the State House, poured paint on the State House gate, concrete columns spray painted with graffiti, wrote the words divest on a concrete pillar, as in boycott, divest, sanction Israel, and he left 2 IEDs in the area, in the vicinity of the State House. So he was apparently hoping to blow some people up in Boston.
Now, see, I always think about what possible defense these guys could use. That's why I just gave you the Baha'i guys defense in court. I always think of a brilliant defense. This guy should be, is this not Boston? Is this not the place of the Boston Tea Party? Is this not the place for rebellion against oppression? I just roll like that. You hypocrites! How dare you celebrate that and condemn me when I am just honoring the forefathers of this country?
Well, maybe you're right. In any case,
all he needs to dupe is one juror, Robert. One juror is all he needs. And I have to say, there are enough stupid people that you're going to get at least one idiot. I wouldn't be surprised if there are 8 complete morons on that jury going, well, this guy's got a great point. What a great point. Yeah, we should let him go.
His mom, Nayla Dahabra, says he's innocent and he's being punished because of his views on Gaza.
Yeah, and some IEDs.
It's all about free speech, David. Don't you favor free speech?
And bombs, yeah.
Oh, yeah. All right, let's go to Morocco.
No, I'd rather not.
Yeah. Oh, we could drop in on that guy, the LARPing guy. What's his name?
I think Jake the Muslim metaphysician is there.
Jake the Muslim metaphysician, that's it. The guy that he wears a jalaba, pretends to be a Middle Easterner. He's really, some guy from Ohio or whatever.
Yeah, major dork.
Yeah, he's in, isn't he? He's in Morocco, right?
Yeah, I think he moved to Morocco.
Yeah, we'll see. Anyway, this is Ibtisame Lakhgar. And you probably heard about this because got a lot of play. She wrote this, she wore this t-shirt. She's actually worn it repeatedly. That says Allah is lesbian.
Robert, before you go anywhere, I'm not familiar with this, but I'm a fan already. You go, girl. You go.
Well, I got to admit, I don't understand it. I don't have any problem with her saying whatever she wants to say. I just don't understand it. How is Allah lesbian?
I don't know, but say it. Say it. Hey, all you lesbians out there. Say it. Order those t-shirts.
Well, anyway, even though she has worn it for several years in many public places, in 2021 she appeared wearing it during an interview broadcast on the French television channel LCI, and she's worn it several times since then in public, but now she has been arrested for wearing it, and she's facing charges of insulting Islam.
I fully support this woman. In fact, lady, tell me the next time you're going to wear that shirt in public. I will stand with you in solidarity. I will have on a shirt that says Mohamed is a child molesting, murdering rapist, and you have on your Allah's a lesbian shirt, and we'll stand side by side and share our views with the world.
I wonder if I could get a tie that says Allah is a lesbian. Anyway, oh man, I had another big story here. Hang on. It's somewhere. I was looking at it thinking, oh, I got to make sure to talk about that. Oh, yeah.
Um, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna. I was trying to think of what she could possibly mean,
I
but
really, yeah, I don't have any idea, really.
yeah. See, and if you wanted to say something, you could say Allah's gay because he's had his speech from all eternity,
Yes.
and it's all about loving him. But before he created anything, they believe that his word is eternal. So he's just been saying this to himself. So if he's a male, then he's saying it to himself, in which case he'd be gay. But I guess if you think that Allah is somehow female, then she's been saying it to herself all these, for eternity. In
I
which
don't
case
know.
Allah would be a lesbian.
Seems to me to be a very pissed off, angry male type, not very feminine.
I
You
agree,
know,
but I'm just wondering it. Maybe she's seeing something that we're missing here.
maybe, maybe. Anyway, okay, Montreal. In Montreal, the fellow on the left there in the picture, he's caught on video walking around. You see this Orthodox Jew. He tells him, "We will kill you. We're going to kill you. I'm just waiting for the order." And he goes around, tells several other Jews in this on this street in Montreal, "We're going to kill you." And it just seems to me that this is something that the Western governments have brought upon their people without
Hmm.
adequate forethought.
And I have to say that we're just waiting for the order
Mm-hmm.
is one of the most significant things that our leaders and journalists and so on do not get. You say, oh, but all these Muslims here, the vast majority of them aren't going around killing people. You saw what happened when ISIS said, hey, we're forming the caliphate. All of a sudden, Muslims from countries around the world, UK,
Mm-hmm.
Germany, France, the US, Canada, they start pouring into that territory. What's that mean? They already had the idea. They were just waiting for the call. They were just waiting for the time. They were waiting for the order to come down. And you had others who were still waiting. They were waiting to find out if this is really Allah's caliphate and it's going to be successful. You would have had more joining if they were more successful.
Mm-hmm.
You had others. We're not sure that this is the correct group that we're supposed to throw down our lives for. But yeah, guess what? There are lots of. Keep in mind, there are plenty of Muslims who just want to live their lives and have their careers and so on. But don't think just because a Muslim isn't attacking that he has no intentions of attacking. You have Muslims who are waiting for an authority to tell them now, and that's when they will start killing.
Indeed. All right, over in Gambia, in West Africa. In Gambia, a 1 month old baby girl was killed as the result of undergoing the female genital mutilation procedure. Now, why on earth would they do that to a 1 month old baby?
That's what you have in Islam.
There is no age limit for marriage. There are many Islamic authorities who make this very clear.
And it's different. You have the Muslim sources. You have the Muslim sources, and they'll talk about this female circumcision and what you do and so on. But there is some cultural. It varies from place to place how severe it is and so on. But you have places where if you don't do this to your daughter, she'll be regarded as a whore her entire life if you don't
Mm,
do it. And so, got to do it, even if she dies.
there you go. All right, there is. Oh, let me see what I've got the picture under. Okay. There is an influencer in Australia. There she is. I didn't get her name. Maybe somebody knows who she is, but in any case, she is clearly a Muslim, and she did a video this week that was circulating saying that the original inhabitants of Australia were Muslims. Now, David, why is she saying that? What is the idea there? Is it just some kind of strange one-upmanship, or is there some other agenda?
Oh, there's an agenda. You know what the Quran says, drive them out from whence they drove you out. And so it's always in their minds to, if you can claim, hey, we were there before you, that therefore you're entirely justified in taking it back. And, uh, you know, of course, that there are lots of Muslims who believe that you can't have offensive jihad. You need a caliphate to have offensive jihad.
Mm-hmm.
But they believe anyone could do defensive jihad. Your defensive jihad is always on the table. So if you're saying that was once ours and you took it from us, then you're waging defensive jihad and it's justified. But yeah, I hear this. I've heard this. I went to the Muslim Day parade in New York City, and
Nice.
they were saying they were saying that the evidence shows that Muslims got here before Europeans, and Muslims were here first, and so this is their land. And this is the Muslim Day parade. Yeah, it was
Mm-hmm.
crazy. You had lots of Muslim New York City NYPD police officers there in attendance, and you had tons of Muslims there. And the speaker is sitting there saying, "And we have discovered proof that Muslims reached the Americas before Europeans did. So this is actually ours."
And people go by, they have no idea of the implications. They think they're just being chauvinistic or something, and they really they have no clue of the significance of what all that means. Okay, out of India, we have where are they? I know we have them here. Huh, maybe I don't. Sorry about that. Anyway, there were two Hindus, Ruplal Das and his relative Pradeep Das. And goodness, I remember getting their photo, but I'm not seeing it here. Oh, there it is. And you can see Ruplal Das on the left, and he is pleading for his life. What happened was they were falsely accused of theft, and a mob of 700 Muslims gathered quickly and beat them severely. They both died later in the hospital, and murder charges have been filed against four men who are all Muslims. There were many others who were involved, and the Hindus are saying this only happened because they were Hindus in a Muslim area and thus were scapegoated, beaten, and killed. There are many other examples of this kind in India. And actually, that was in Bangladesh? Excuse me, saying India. It's Bangladesh. Bangladesh being Muslim majority, you see, the Hindus that are a tiny minority are constantly embattled and subjected to this kind of treatment. And then authorities do little or nothing because the authorities are on the side of the attackers.
And they can't do anything, right? Because either they agree with what the Muslims are doing, or they're scared of the Muslims. They understand, hey, if you side with the Hindus instead of the Muslims are coming after you too.
Yeah, when you got a mob of 700 people and they are baying for blood and they have just killed, beaten two guys senseless, you're not going to stand up and say, hey, this is all a mistake. You all need to disperse. You
And you've got European leaders looking at this saying, how can we make that work here?
Ha! Yes, yes. How can we bring that to our own people?
And
It's
we've already seen it. We've already seen you can have a you Muslims can make up a couple of percent of the population, and the entire government and all journalists will back down like cowards, even as these guys are gang
mhm.
raping little girls. What do you think happens when you get to 20%, 30%, 40%?
Well, then we can just look at what happens in majority Muslim countries to the religious minorities, and we see what's going to happen in the West. I don't have to be a prophet to say it's very clear that in France, in Germany, in Britain, you're going to have the same kind of thing we saw in this story in Bangladesh, with mobs of Muslims victimizing non Muslims. The authorities are either Muslims themselves or afraid to go up against the Muslim mob themselves, and so no justice is given to the victims.
In
It's
other words,
common.
ladies and gentlemen, you take some of these stories about the grooming gangs and so on, and Muslims were a small percentage of the population in the UK, and this was allowed to happen out of fear. Imagine you have, because when I'm talking about 20 or 30% of the population, very soon you're going to have like 60, 70% in certain in cities, in like cities, because that's where the bulk of them are. But just imagine you have 70% Muslim population in, let's say, Birmingham or something like that. Muslim mayor, most of the police are Muslims, and then 12-year-old girl comes in saying, I was gang raped. What do you think the odds are that she'll get justice? And I don't mean Islamic justice.
Exactly. All right, Democratic Republic of Congo. This is another indication of what the West has to look forward to because of what its own leaders have done to the countries of Europe and Canada and the United States to a lesser degree. 52 people, at least, killed by the Islamic State group Allied Democratic Forces, they call themselves, in North Kivu province in the northeast. Very lawless area where the jihadis essentially have free reign, and the central government doesn't seem to have any ability to stop them. And you got to wonder once again, who's funding the jihadis, who's equipping the jihadis to the extent that they are more powerful than the central governments in Congo, Nigeria, so many other countries. It seems as if the governments lack the will to stop them, but also they lack the resources. The jihadis just are better equipped, and you got to wonder who's behind that. But we never see any information coming out about who funds these people. Meanwhile, in Illinois, we have, where is he? This guy is an imam. Let me get him here. You can see he's praying, "Oh Allah, liberate the Al-Aqsa Mosque from the filth of the plundering Jews." That is Mazhar Mahmoud. And Mazhar Mahmoud, he was preaching at the Islamic Foundation of Peoria, Illinois. He's originally from Toronto. Now, I thought this was very interesting, David, because so often we hear that violent passages, I see this even now. We've discussed how a lot of the things the Islamic apologists used to say, used to deny, like the child marriage, now they own it and they say it's great, like Daniel Hakikaju. But it seems like there are still large numbers of Islamic apologists, or at least maybe the anonymous Twitter bot contingent. They still say, oh, these passages of violence and war, they only have to do with the 7th century and Muhammad. So what I thought was interesting about Mazhar Mahmoud is that he takes the 7th century stuff in the Islamic sources about Muhammad and matter-of-factly relates it as if, of course, it has to do with today. And he says, does anybody know why the Prophet kicked out the Jews from Medina, namely Banu Kainuka, that is one of the Jewish tribes in Medina, by their inception? Read history, my friends. Understand what our legacy is. Of course, the Jews detested this, that a woman dressing like the Muslims is present in their society. In their carnal desires, they were eager to get a glance at this woman. So they devised, they deliberated, they plotted. What they do is they take the bottom portion of her clothing and they tie it with her kimar, with her hijab, so that when she gets up, what happens? Her bottom is revealed. Now, of course, we know that's a story from Islamic tradition, that the Jews did this, Muhammad is enraged, and
Yeah, they pranked her. He
Mm-hmm.
actually wanted to slaughter all the Jews. He wanted to slaughter
Yeah.
them. It was an Arab tribe that the Banu Kainuka were allied with. They said, no, don't slaughter them all. You're gonna have problems with us because they're our allies. Just expel them. So he
Mm-hmm.
expelled them. Later on, when he was more powerful, then with the Banu Qurayza, he wiped them all out. But here we are again, Robert. You had a couple of Jews who pulled a prank on a Muslim woman. Muhammad wanted to exterminate the entire tribe. It's so weird that this rule that we always hear about, don't blame an entire community for the actions of one or a few, not even Muhammad himself followed that rule. That it's just
Indeed.
it's supposed to be a rule.
So Mazhar Mahmud, he goes on to say, how similar is today to yesterday? He doesn't say, in other words, oh, that's 7th century stuff that has nothing to do with us. He says we should draw conclusions from the 7th century material for today. And so he says that some Muslims say we need to build political situations with these Zionists. We need to have political stability. Have we stooped so low, my friends? Oh Allah, liberate the Al Aqsa Mosque from the filth of the plundering Jews. He's saying you should look at the Jews the way Muhammad did and act toward them the way Muhammad did, which is just what the apologists say that Muslims don't do.
Yeah, and I mean, just think about this. If people took that guy's advice and they were consistent, what would be saying? Oh, here you have plenty of Muslims who are causing endless problems and so on, so just wipe them all out. Fortunately, we don't do that. But I mean, think if we said, hey, that guy has a good principle for how to treat groups, but let's be consistent. If that's how you're going to treat other groups, and if that's the pattern that was laid down by Muhammad, and Muhammad is the pattern of conduct, oh, we should follow that same pattern too. Suddenly he would think, no, don't do that. That would be wrong and immoral. It's like hypocrisy is embedded in the entire system.
Yeah,
It
but
is the
you're
most hypocritical system ever devised.
But David, you're the most vile of created beings, and they're the best of people. So you can't just act like you're the best of people. Those are quotes from the Quran, folks. Just in case you don't know, I don't really think David is the most vile of created beings. Anyway,
Yes, you do.
all right. So we got some super chats here. How does a cow stay up to date? Reads Moo's papers. Thank you. All right. Thank you.
That was it's funny, Robert. It was you just read that like the dumbest joke ever. But when you were telling that story from Tennessee, and you said they described him as Tennessee man, Muhammad, they
Mm,
described him as Tennessee man. I thought of this old dumb joke. Uh, Here you go, Robert. What did
okay.
Tennessee?
I don't know.
Same thing, Arkansas. And I was like, no, it's too dumb to say, right? What did Tennessee? Same thing, Arkansas. Really stupid joke. But I'm like, you can't tell stupid jokes on here. And yet this person just went ahead and violated the rule.
That reminds me of a joke from first grade. Did Mississippi wear her New Jersey to the ball? Idaho, Alaska. All right. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Keep doing what you guys are doing. My priest introduced a former Muslim in our inquirers class. Wow, that's unusual. Hope the bishop doesn't get wind of that. I asked him what made him come to Christ. He looked at me and said, have you heard of David Wood? Well, there you go, David. Thank God. Look at that.
Smart.
And then we have, are we getting a critical guide to the Hadiths? The Hadiths are extraordinarily voluminous. That would be a massive undertaking. But the closest thing to a critical guide to the Hadiths, read my book, Muhammad, A Critical Biography. And that
I have
evaluates
to say,
various stories about Muhammad. Yes.
do we really need that after Sheikh Yasser Qadi's doing the work for us?
Good old Yasser Qadi. He's my favorite
Yeah.
sheikh.
Yeah. Hey, Robert, you could write a critical guide to the hadiths, and you open it up, and it's just a quotation from Sheikh Yasser Qadi, and the rest is blank.
Beautiful. Salat is another way of saying zoot pile. Okay. How does this end? Do the Muslims take over Europe? Does a new fascist movement arise that ethnically cleanses the Muslims? Do liberals stand up for real democracy? Or some combination? Well, that's anybody's guess. Nobody knows the future. It could be any of those things. I certainly hope that there is not mass death of innocent people, but at this point, it ain't at all certain.
I've said it. I've said it over and over and over again. The longer people wait to deal with the problem, and the more they push this problem off to the next generation, the more of a bloodbath it's going to be.
Exactly.
You go back 2 decades, you could have dealt with it completely peacefully without shedding a drop of blood. Yeah, you have to deal with terrorist attacks and things like that, but you could have dealt with the problem of Islam taking over very peacefully in Europe. Um, Now you're eventually still going to have to deal with it, but it's not. Keep in mind, the reason we were explaining all this decades ago is because we could see where this is going inevitably. We could see where this is inevitably going. And we were trying to avoid the bloodbath, ladies and gentlemen. We were trying to avoid it. We understand if you keep getting more and more people trying to take over the other countries they're in, you get an inevitable bloodbath. It's going to lead there. So
Mm-hmm.
deal with it when you can deal with it peacefully and not have the bloodbath. And they said, no, we don't want to. We want future generations to have to deal with it and have a huge bloodbath. Okay, then you're the guys who want the bloodbath, not us.
That's it.
But you're gonna right now. It's going to be very. It looks like it will since people aren't going to deal with it right now, and it's going to be still more years down the road. I predict a bloodbath that we didn't want.
Yep. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. The best response to far right who say Jews are responsible for mass migration in the West, especially Europe, they tend to mention Jewish NGOs. Yeah, and they never mention the fact that Pope Francis, for years, was shaming Catholics into thinking it was unchristian to oppose mass migration. And they're Catholic NGOs. The Catholics in the United States, the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, was getting a few years back was getting $95 million a year from the U.S. government to help resettle refugees in the United States. They brought in at least one jihadi guy in Ohio, and so the people who are trying to blame the Jews for this, it seems to me they're steadfastly ignoring the fact that many, many Christian agencies, Catholics, Orthodox, Lutherans, all kinds of organizations have been bringing migrants in and profiting from doing so into Europe and into North America as well.
And when you have people saying, "But you see, the Jews are bringing in as many Muslims as possible," that's a perfect time to put this at odds with their claims that Jews are these ultimate masterminds. So what you're saying, far right, is that Jews are so smart that they're trying to get as many Muslims as possible into Western nations to take over Western nations, and that the people taking over Western nations and all their nuclear capabilities are going to be people who hate Jews and want to exterminate them. These are
That's
the
it.
masterminds. These are the brilliant masterminds going, hey, of all people, who wants to slaughter us most? Who wants to completely wipe us out most? Oh, these guys? Let's help them take over the world and exterminate us. You're calling these guys the brilliant masterminds? See, you can't have it both ways, guys. If you think they're brilliant masterminds, you can't say they're trying to annihilate themselves. Or if you want to claim that they're bringing in as many Muslims as possible who are eventually going to exterminate Jews, then you have to say they're the biggest idiots who've ever walked the planet. Take your pick. You can't have it both ways.
That's it. Well said. David, did you see Lubna talked about Jesus on Heretics? She seems like a possible ex-Muslim now after fleeing Luton from Muslim threats.
No, I didn't see that, but that's interesting. So, Robert, you familiar with that story?
No, I don't know who Lubna is.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't followed her recently, but yeah, this was a few months back, and Muslims found out where she lived, and keep in mind, she considered herself a Muslim, but she'd be calling out like things like the grooming gangs and things like that. And she said the reason she's doing it is because when Muslims don't call this stuff out, everyone sees it and says, "Why aren't you guys calling it out?" And she's saying, and they're right. If we can't even call this stuff out ourselves, that's the way it looks. That's the way it looks. So I want people to understand, no, there are Muslims who are calling this stuff out. So she called it out. She was never attacking Islam. She's criticizing horrible stuff, like again, like the grooming gangs and so on. So she would criticize these things. What happened to her? Turns out she wasn't allowed to say any of that. Muslims found out where she lived. They doxed her. She had to flee home with her daughter and so on. And the entire time, she's still considering herself a Muslim and so on. So you had to sit there and wonder, it's like, love, no, when are you going to get the idea that this is actually a problem with your religion and not just a problem with certain individuals? When you have to flee for your life in Great Britain and go into hiding in Great Britain because you're not allowed to criticize grooming gangs as a Muslim in Great Britain. She had to flee. She had to flee for her life.
She must
And so,
know there's justification for their behavior in the Quran, no?
I'd be surprised if she knows that, or if she hasn't reinterpreted it or something like that.
Okay. Well, I certainly hope she stays safe. All right. They beat me in the desert. That must be some zut thing.
Oh, you don't know that? No, that was
No.
you remember that so there was the Greta Thunberg boat trip where
Yeah.
they were going to go to Gaza and stuff. That didn't work. Then there was a group of people from like Ireland or something like that, and they went to Egypt, and they're like, "Hey, we're going to go up into Gaza through Egypt."
Oh, yeah, I saw them.
And, yeah, and then the Egyptian military stopped them and so on. And
Hmm.
there's this long video of this guy. Sounds like the stupidest accent ever. I mean, it's worse than Russell Brand's accent. But he's pleading to the Egyptian military, please, but what about your Muslim brothers? Think about the babies. Think about the babies. But he's whining about how he was treated. He's going, they beat me in the desert. They beat me in the desert. It's like, you're not in Ireland or Scotland or Wales or wherever the heck you're from anymore, dude. You're in Egypt. And if they tell you you're not crossing that border, yes, I'm gonna cross the border anyway. They're gonna beat the freaking crap out of you. You're lucky they didn't shoot you.
Man. Reminds me of that couple a few years back, and they decided to ride their bikes around the world. And so they end up in Kazakhstan or somewhere, and they get kidnapped by ISIS and killed. They figured everybody, and they were keeping a blog before that and talking about where they stopped and how nice everybody was and how wonderful people are, and we're all really the same if once you get to know people. And of course, they didn't know anything about jihad. All right. Nowadays in Montreal, Muslims are praying outdoors, even near churches. Will you kindly explain why the Muslims do outdoor prayers? It's a gesture of supremacy. It's about showing their numbers. Jesus says when you pray, go into your closet and pray. So you don't make a big deal of it. You don't make a show of it. But that's not in Islam. In Islam, you do make a show of it because you want to show your presence and your power and your dominance. As Mohamed said, Islam must dominate and not be dominated. So
And it's
go ahead.
and it's not just a show to the unbelievers, although it's that. It's, hey, look at us, we're here. Hey, everyone, pay attention to us. It's also a show to Muslims around the world. Look at what cowards they are. We wouldn't let them do this in our countries, and yet they'll let us do it. That's how weak they are. They're waiting to be conquered. Allah is helping us subjugate these people. Look at what we can get away with.
It's right in the Quran. They destroyed their houses by their own hands. It's what the
You mean
West is
Surah
doing.
59, verse 2, Robert?
Why, yes, I do mean that, David. Isn't that
I'm
amazing?
about to I'm about to record a video about Zohran Mamdani and how
Oh, yeah.
people don't realize like how the signals that they're sending to Muslims, but that is going to be viewed as like fulfillment of prophecy.
Hmm.
They're destroying it themselves. They're helping us destroy it themselves.
Excellent. I just wrote a book about Zohran Mamdani. It'll be out next month called Intifada on the Hudson, The Selling of Zohran Mamdani.
Yeah, you better get that out quick before the right. That's good. It's going to be good timing. It's going to be good timing.
Yeah.
I still have a sneaking suspicion that his own party is going to find a way to torpedo him or something before the election. But so that might be short lived. But
Maybe.
If
I
they
don't
don't,
think so.
if they don't torpedo him, then yep, that is going to be that book will do well.
I think that he's going to be around for a while. Even if he loses, he'll be around for a while. But anyway, we'll see. Just speculating here. Could not the IDF withdraw from Gaza, seal the border, go on full alert to prevent any incursions, then Mossad take out Hamas? Okay, wait a minute. You want the IDF to withdraw from Gaza and then Mossad takes out Hamas? I don't know that's going to work. Hamas is a military force. So you need a
Yeah,
military force
yeah,
to counter it, not a bunch of
yeah,
spies.
yeah. They run. You're talking about thousands and thousands of people.
Yes,
You're talking about many tens of thousands of people. It's not something an assassin takes out.
indeed. Mohammed, so nice they named him twice. Yeah, really, you gotta love the guy. Um, I think he. If I were gonna put the Muhammad movie into production, I would really want him to play the Big Mo. Why is the Quran not legally defined as hate speech? Is it freedom of religion that stands in its way? Yeah, absolutely it is. I remember a few years back there was talk during the Obama administration about actually criminalizing hate speech, and a lot of people who have been miseducated, they think hate speech is a real thing that can be defined, that can be identified in an objective manner, and they think that it does not have First Amendment protection. And this is completely false. The whole idea of the First Amendment is to protect speech that's unpopular or unwelcome. But in any case, there was talk from the Council on American Islamic Relations, and Nihad Awad of the Council on American Islamic Relations was talking about getting a specific exemption for the Quran from these hate speech statutes that were being brooded about, so that nobody would think, oh, well, we'll apply it to them as well. It was going to a religious freedom exemption.
Yeah, and it's also interesting. Like the founding fathers of the United States, they believed that they had a population that could handle these freedoms responsibly. They didn't believe that these were, hey, these are rights of all people of all times, no matter what their views are. They believed you could have a certain kind of population that could handle these freedoms responsibly, and they thought, and matter of fact, they said this won't work if you get a population that is going to abuse these freedoms and so on. The system will break down.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, you get later generations and they think that's just this, nope, do whatever you want. And you eventually get people who want to take advantage of these to use the system to ultimately overthrow the system. Wasn't made for that. It wasn't, oh, here's some things that you can use to overthrow the entire system. It's not what it was there for.
Indeed.
But that's how it's being used now.
Yeah, the idea that religious freedom is some suicide pill that can make you exempt from obeying every other law, it doesn't make any sense to me. But I don't know. I'm no lawyer. I don't know what that means. Okay, and then we have, please comment, German courts exonerate Muslims. I don't know what you're referring to specifically, but courts all over the West exonerate Muslims for fear of Islamophobia and racism charges. Yes, please. Yes, thank you. And from Oz, I apologize for all PM. So sorry. Yeah, he is pretty sorry. Old Albanese.
Pretty much everyone
Albanese.
needs to apologize for their PM at this point.
Yes, indeed. And that brings us to the end of this week in Jihad. Should there be, in the unlikely event that there is jihad in the future, David and I will reconvene and cover it. Nope, there is more. A late comer. So, do we have to classify Islam as a political ideology, as per Bill Warner, to correct this loophole? Bill Warner's a great man, and that's a very important point that Islam is a political ideology as well as a religion. I don't think it's even close to being on the horizon that it's going to be classified as such. But if it were, a lot of this would be cleared up.
Yeah, and I'm still of the view, ladies and gentlemen, guys, you can wreck Islam anytime you want. all you really have to do is everyone has to be on board, everyone has to catch on and start blasting away at the insanity and perversions of Muhammad over and over again. That is Islam's main weakness. Yes, you have to have police and government agencies to deal with terrorist threats. Long term, if you want to completely crush Islam, learn about Muhammad and share it with everyone. The matter of fact, that is the by far the best way to get the radicals as far away from you as possible, and to distinguish between the ones who want to impose to pose Islamic law on you and the ones who are actually here because they want freedom and democracy. If just make it so that you can't go anywhere in the West without hearing about Muhammad and Aisha and the Al Zut and all this stuff. Guess what? The people who want to subjugate you and want Islam to conquer the world, they're going to want to get their kids as far away from that as possible. They're terrified of their kids hearing all this stuff about Islam. The ones who genuinely want freedom and democracy and a good life, they'll be like, okay, well, we're here for freedom and democracy and a good life, and so we'll have to tolerate it. That's the way to do it. It's just, I mean, it's always, the solutions are always right in front of people's faces, but people just never want to do like the most basic stuff. And notice, the solution I just gave you is completely, utterly, totally peaceful. Not a drop of blood. You're not shedding a drop of blood by relentlessly mocking Muhammad and his stupid book.
Indeed. A couple new ones here. David, would you wear a Muhammad is gay for Azut shirt?
Sure.
Okay.
That people keep in mind. I have no desire to make fun of Muhammad just to annoy Muslims who are living normal lives. If I was trying to tick off some Muslims who've crossed some lines, do it in a heartbeat.
And
hey, Robert.
Yeah.
Oh man, Robert, you don't know what's coming out. I'm just going to give everyone, just for everyone who's here and who stays to the end of the show, you have no idea what's about to come out, but it's awesome, Robert. It's awesome. So you heard about the Al Zut story, Robert? The Al Zut.
Sure.
Yeah, so it's this weird hadith. People don't even know what it's about. Sounds really bad, but Muhammad's in the desert. They beat me in the desert. He tells his friend to stand behind the Diddy line. Says, if you cross this line, you're dead. And then it says Muhammad goes out there, and what looked like a bunch of the men of Al Zut rode him all night long, and he came back sore and so on, right? Weird story. Muslims will say, oh, this is the jinn and so on. Anyway, I was talking about this story with my friend Mike Jones, Inspiring Philosophy. And he's sitting there and he's going, when I was preparing for my debate with Daniel Hakikachu, I had to read all these articles that he cites and stuff about sex with men and abuse of boys and stuff like this in the ancient world. And he goes, there was this ancient belief that men could inject their manliness and virility into young men. And this actually helped them develop into stronger, more virile men, right? And this was a belief in Southeast Asia, the region of the men of Al Zut, right? But the idea was that if you take strong, virile men, they can actually inject their manliness and virility into someone else. And this will make him a turbocharged, superpowered, strong, military, mighty man, full of sexual virility and so on. So he's sitting there breaking this down. And I said, that would lead to a completely different meaning of Muhammad had the sexual strength of 30 men. Right? Because you would think this, they're just going, wow, he's really, really virile and so on. But what if they're actually thinking, no, he got the 30 men injected their manliness into him. And that's why he's so virile and can have sex with all these women and so on. And so, I'm going to make a video about that. But yeah, the story of the men of Al Zut, ladies and gentlemen, is actually getting worse for Muslims than they thought already.
Well, stay tuned for that, ladies and gentlemen. And we got just a few more here, David. Thank you, Michael. And you guys are awesome. No, you, Mother Hulda, are awesome. And make covering face illegal and stop immigration. That's the only thing that can save the Western world. Well, there's certainly a case that can be made. You know, it used to be coming out of the Wild West in the United States that covering the face was illegal. And a lot of places, cities, and states rolled that back precisely because Muslims were immigrating into the U.S. And they had the face covering illegal because guys would go rob a bank, you know. Not that anybody wearing a niqab would ever do that. Anyway, that's it. We are out of Jihad. There is actually plenty more. For more stories on Jihad, go see jihadwatch.org. And if there is any more in the coming weeks, we will be back, God willing. Until then, pray, hope, and don't worry.